Well, Tennessee's getting ready to go back on the road. This time it really could be a sneaky matchup between the Arkansas Razorbacks and the Tennessee Volunteers. Paige Dauer alongside Jimmy Hyams. This one, though, a bit more sneaky than what maybe we were anticipating when they took on Oklahoma. I think it's for the fact that Arkansas actually has a decent home environment, and they've only been a couple of plays away a couple of times from also being an undefeated team. I think maybe that aspect of this team is maybe flying under the radar. You know, you look at them 3-2 when really they could be 5-0, just like Tennessee heading into this matchup. And I think because of that, they're incredibly desperate for a win right now.
Yeah, Arkansas, I think they have a pretty good team, but they just keep shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
They absolutely blew the game against Oklahoma State. They outplayed Oklahoma State all over the field, had 648 total yards, but they had key turnovers, they had key penalties, and lost. And then against Texas A&M, they had an opportunity to win that game, and they didn't.
Yeah.
They're a dangerous team, but if they continue to have turnovers, if they continue to have key penalties, then Tennessee shouldn't have much of a problem with them. But if Arkansas plays a clean game, they can be a difficult team to beat.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those issues on the offensive side for Arkansas has to start with the pocket. The front of it is really soft at times. We see Taylon Green getting flushed out, scrambling, making plays before he's ready. And you mentioned that Texas A&M game. I mean, the costly plays came when he was flushed out of the pocket before he was ready. How important is it for Tennessee to continue to exploit those problems on Saturday?
It's one of the keys to the game.
Yeah.
And you want to contain Green because he's a really good runner. He's actually a better runner, more dangerous, I think, as a runner than a passer.
Yeah.
But in doing so, you can't let him have free reign to run. You have to contain him. And I think Tennessee can do that. Tennessee's defensive line's outstanding. Arkansas's got a couple of injuries on the offensive line, so it makes it harder to protect him.
Yeah.
And when you pressure Green, he gets rattled.
Yes.
He'll make some mistakes. He'll throw it to you. So I think those are keys for Tennessee to make sure you contain him, put pressure on him, force him into some bad decisions.
Yeah, because when we were looking at that, Arkansas Razorbacks game against Texas A&M, it was literally in their final drive to try and, get the win back or the lead to get that win, where he was flushed out, he was rolling right, threw over his body, and then it's an interception. So I'm thinking for me, this game will really come down to really the linebackers either helping to flush him out or keeping their eyes on the ball after the snap. So if there is a late play down the field, they're where they need to be, because oftentimes it's like 11 hats on 11 hats, but it almost feels like because of the way Taylon Green plays, it needs to be 11 hats on the ball the whole time.
Yeah, I think that Tennessee's defensive line, they don't need to blitz. I think they're good enough to win their one-on-one battles to put pressure on Green. Then with the linebackers, they've got two decisions. One, do they become spies so that if Green breaks containment, they're there to tackle him, or do they drop back in coverage?
Right.
And Green can be dangerous when he throws on the run, but he can also make some dumb plays when he's on the run. But this, I think, is going to be probably the biggest test for the secondary for Tennessee this year, because when Green does scramble, you got to stay with your guy in the secondary. So, and Tennessee really hasn't faced a good passing team yet.
No, not really.
And Arkansas averages a lot of yards passing, but a lot of that was accumulated, with the exception of Oklahoma State, against some weaker opponents.
Right.
They've only averaged 20 points in the two SEC games. So I think it's going to be a big test for the linebackers and the secondary to make sure that when Green does scramble, that they don't let receivers run loose.
Yeah, because we saw, against Oklahoma that offense, be it late in the game, started to find a little bit of success, and they had Michael Hawkins in at quarterback, who really did change the makeup of that offense, leading to those 2 touchdowns late in the fourth quarter. So, yeah, the secondary kind of being on their P's and Q's, I think, will be pivotal.
Yeah, and the thing about Green, he's interesting as a runner. He's a long strider.
Yeah.
He doesn't look that fast, but he is pretty fast. And he can be pretty elusive, too. But I also think, and his head coach alluded to this, he's not playing with confidence.
No.
And when you go against what's ranked the #1 defense in the country and you don't have much confidence, that's not a good recipe for success, right?
Right.
Now, could he gain some of that against Tennessee? If he has success early, maybe he does. And I think Bobby Petrino, the offensive coordinator, is a really good play caller. Maybe he'll put him in some situations to have early success. But if your head coach is talking about your quarterback, not having confidence.
Yeah.
Man, I'm Tennessee. That's music to my ears.
I know, because when I was listening to Sam Pittman talking to his press conference, I was like, I really can't remember too many times where a head coach is that honest and that transparent about your quarterback and your offensive line not having confidence, because he, kind of puts some of that responsibility on the offensive line. Like, they have to hold up for Taylon Green. You guys hardly are even giving him a chance to have success. Therefore, he's not making good plays. And it's like this snowball effect. When you were listening to it, how surprised were you to hear Sam Pittman reveal that they're lacking confidence heading into this massive SEC game?
There was a part of me that was really surprised that he said that, but there's another part of me that wasn't, because I've known Pittman for a long time.
Yeah.
And he's very honest and he's very transparent. And maybe
Almost
too
to a
much
fault.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but when he said that, I'm like, I can't believe he's firing that out there. But that's just kind of where he is. That's what he does. Is he tells the truth about his team. And so I do wonder a little bit about where their mindset is. I mean, this is a team that they have had 12 fumbles.
Yes.
Now, they've only lost 4, but they've had 12. They're lucky they've only lost 4. They've thrown 5 interceptions. Green has 5 touchdown passes.
Right.
That's a horrible ratio. So, but offensively, by the same token, they're ranked 13th in the nation in total offense. So they move the football typically.
Right.
But I will say this, a lot of those numbers were padded by their first 3 games. The first 3 games they scored, 138 points maybe? Next, in the 2 SEC games, they scored 41. So now that they're playing better defenses, their offense has not been quite as prolific.
Yeah, I think where Arkansas might get most of its, punch or confidence does come, one, in their running game, obviously with the quarterback, but with their traditional running game and their running back in Jaquita and Jackson. I saw an interesting stat that, in his 9 touchdowns, he's got 509 yards on, I think, 97 carries or 79 carries. On first down, he gets the ball a lot of the time. He's gotten it 47 times on a first down try, averaging about 6.7 yards per carry. So I think, in those early downs, they show that they really do like to run it. So I think, like you mentioned earlier with Tennessee's defensive line, I think that's where they will have a lot of their successes in those early downs. Jackson's
a really good running back. He's a transfer from Utah, and he is second in the SEC with 9 touchdowns. And I've watched him. I saw him play at Utah and thought he was really good, and now he's carried that to Arkansas. He's the guy that Tennessee needs to contain. Now, he averages over 101 yards per game,
right?
But Tennessee's run defense gives up 56 yards a game. I think Tennessee wins that battle.
Yeah.
I think they'll bottle Jackson. I'll be shocked if Jackson gets 100 yards against Tennessee. I would think Tennessee's game plan is to shut down the run, force them to be one-dimensional, keep Green in the pocket. And I think that would be a formula for success for this defense. But Jackson is a quality back, and he is pretty good at getting yards after contact. But I am so impressed with Tennessee's defense.
Right.
I think Tennessee will have a chance to bottle Arkansas up. But I will say this: if Arkansas can play penalty free and not turn it over, there's a chance they'll score into the 20s.
Yeah, I think the biggest confidence booster for Tennessee's defense is just looking back to the other week against Oklahoma, where they had 11 TFLs. So they definitely do well playing behind the line of scrimmage and winning that line of scrimmage battle. When we flip it to Tennessee's offense, this is a huge game for Nico Imaliava. Of course, Oklahoma, that first true traditional road game, but Arkansas has a more proper home crowd to really make it feel like an away game. How much of this game is a confidence builder for Nico?
I think he's going to do well against Arkansas's defense. Arkansas's defense is pretty good, and in particular, they're good against the run. Their pass defense is not as good statistically as their run defense. I also think that Tennessee's wide receivers need to step up.
Yeah.
I think they've been okay. They've not been exceptional. And in fact, in my opinion, the only skill position player that's been exceptional is Dylan Sampson.
Right.
The others have been good.
Had their moments,
but not consistently at an exceptional all-SEC level,
right?
Except for Sampson. So I think it's a big game for the offense. Now, they throttled back. Josh Heupel throttled them back. I know that against Oklahoma, he had 9 consecutive possessions where he ran basically up the middle on first down and got 16 yards out of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so he really relied on the defense to win that football game. I don't think he'll be nearly as conservative against Arkansas.
Right.
And I think he understands he'll need to attack a little bit more against them. But Nico needs to have a good game. I do like his accuracy. I like his poise. I think he's a capable runner. I think he's a good decision maker.
I know that there's this idea that maybe Heupel keeps Nico and the play calls close to the chest, doesn't reveal too much, keeps it as simple as he can. Also, you want the quarterback to look good. You don't want to reveal more than you should. Do you think that's an accurate assessment, that maybe the leash has been short and they've not really kind of let him do as much as he's wanted? Like, we look at other games like that Alabama-Georgia game, and those quarterbacks are kind of really showing everything they've got. Of course, the caliber of that matchup a lot different than against Oklahoma, but do you think we might see Nico with more variety in his plays this game, or do you think that's wrong that they haven't been doing that?
I think the only game where that occurred was Oklahoma.
Okay.
I mean, they scored 51 against North Carolina State.
Well, yeah.
And they scored 70 against Kent State and could have scored 120.
Yeah.
So I really – and then there were a couple of overmatched opponents, okay?
Right.
But I thought he was sharp in those games, and I thought Tennessee ran its offense the way it should have run its offense in those games. God, they had over 600 yards in a couple of those games.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
So to
At
me –
a point, they were averaging better yards than Hendon Hooker's year when they averaged 525.
Yeah. So I think the Oklahoma game is the only one I would point to in which that occurred. I actually, and I was wrong in my assessment, I thought Heupel going into Oklahoma was going to have a whole bunch of tricks in his bag that he was going to unveil.
Yeah, like Missouri a couple years ago.
And that didn't happen.
No.
So he went the other way, and I think the offensive line, with the tackles being out, the 2 strip sacks, the way the defense played, led to him perhaps changing that game plan a little bit. But I think they'll go back to playing the way they did in the previous games, and that's being a little bit more wide open, having Nico throw some slants, some deep balls. They may run him some on the zone read a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see how that unveils. But, no, I don't think they've just reeled it in all season. I think you can only point to one game where I think that would be accurate.
And I think the biggest difference in that game is you didn't have Lance Hurd and you didn't have John Campbell Jr.
Right.
And they're not on injury list.
Correct.
So how important is their play and their presence alone in the success of this team and their ability to get it downfield?
It's huge. It's huge. I went into this season with 2 big question marks about Tennessee. One, the secondary. And I think they played pretty well. In particular, tackled very well. My other question mark was the depth on the offensive line.
Sure.
That has proven to be a huge problem because the tackles beyond the starters were not good against Oklahoma.
No.
And they need those 2 starters back. They need Hurd and Campbell back. And if they come back and play at the level that I would expect them to play at, I would expect this offense to be much more efficient than it was against Oklahoma.
Yeah, because, I mean, immediately, especially once John Campbell Jr. went down against Oklahoma, even the run game wasn't as efficient to start.
Yeah.
That took a little bit to get going.
Yeah.
So why we did just talk about the passing game for Dylan Sampson and potentially, Deshaun Bishop again getting those number 2 snaps. I think them being able to create those gaps for them, starting, of course, at the offensive line is huge because Arkansas has a decent defense.
They do. And their their run defense is pretty good. They give up 93 yards a game.
Yeah.
They got a really good defensive tackle. Defensive end, Landon Jackson.
Right, yeah.
He's got 2 sacks. They have 10 sacks on the season.
Yeah, his best game came against the Aggies where he had both of those sacks.
Right.
He had 8 tackles, yeah.
Yeah, so he's a really good player. He's an all-SEC player.
Yeah.
They got a safety that leads them in tackles. They have a linebacker that's a really good player as well. They have a good side. Now, it's not as good as Oklahoma's defense.
Right.
But their run defense is the best thing they do. The secondary, again, passing yards, because teams haven't been able to run much on them, their passing yards have been inflated a little bit. But I think this will be a challenge for them. And Tennessee's tackles need to play well. They need to play well to protect Nico. They need to play well to help open up the run game.
Yeah.
And if they are back and healthy, and we'll see, because that injury report can be fluid, right?
Yes.
So we'll see where they are. But if they're able to play at a decent level, they're not to be great.
Yeah.
But if they can play at a decent level, then I think that'll make a huge difference in this offensive production.
Yeah. For the wide receivers, do you think this is a game where Dante Thornton continues to kind of shine? Does Chris Brazzell step up? Or even Mike Matthews? Or do you think this is another game where he's getting it to like 9 different guys once again?
I think he'll spread it. I think
Yeah.
he'll throw it to a lot of different people. What's interesting is Thornton's averaging, 23 yards a catch. He doesn't have many catches.
No.
7, maybe?
Yeah, I don't think he has double digits yet. Yeah.
So the passing game, I think, has kind of been a work in progress. And it needs to be good against Arkansas. Doesn't have to be great, but it needs to be good. It needs to be efficient. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they do in the passing game. I actually think they may come out throwing a little bit
Yeah.
to test Arkansas' secondary. And then if they get Arkansas on its heels a little bit and you have some success, that'll open up the run game.
Right.
So I'm trying to help Coach Heupel with his game plan
Yeah.
here.
Clip it here. We'll send it to him after the show. And another angle, and Squirrel White kind of talked about it in the press conference earlier this week about going up against a couple former Tennessee Vols, starting with Danico Slaughter, who they played against each other plenty, especially during practice here while they were at Tennessee. Addison Nichols is also there. Does that feed into this, the hype of the game? Is that anything that they're probably really even thinking about beyond us just asking them the question point blank?
I don't know how much it feeds into the hype of the game, but I certainly think there'll be some chirping on the field.
Oh, okay.
and the people that like to chirp the most are receivers and defensive backs.
And who's on the other side, yeah.
Yeah, so Danico Slaughter, who, by the way, is third on their team in tackles with 27. He's a pretty good player. So I can see a lot of chirping between Slaughter and several of Tennessee's receivers. Maybe it's Thornton, maybe it's Squirrel, maybe it's McCoy.
Right.
But I think that you'll see some of that. And watch for the chirping to occur at the end of a play.
Right.
That's when you'll see a lot of it. I just caught one on you, or I just defended one on you. You don't see as much of that with offensive or defensive linemen.
No.
But yeah, I think there could be a sideshow with Slaughter and some of Tennessee's receivers.
Yeah, I definitely think that could be a good one. Just last final key to the game, you think, for this game for Tennessee to continue to be 2-0 in SEC play?
I'm going to give you two of them.
Okay.
One is Tennessee has outscored its opponent 78-3 in the first quarter.
Yeah.
They're getting off to a great start.
I mean, that's an insane stat.
It is. This is also insane. 149-6 in the first half. So getting off to a fast start. We've already heard Sam Pittman talk about his team not being that confident, or particularly on offense. Jump on them quick, and let's see what happens to their confidence.
Yeah.
Here's the other one, third down conversions.
Okay.
Arkansas leads the SEC at 55% on third down conversions. They're fifth in the nation in third down conversions.
Wow.
Tennessee's given up 17%. 9 of 53 on third down conversions.
Wow.
So that'll be a battle. Watch for that. If Tennessee can get off the field and they have success on third down and stopping Arkansas, forcing some 3-and-outs in particular early, and if Tennessee jumps on them, then I think Tennessee could potentially win the game comfortably.
Yeah, I had a good feeling that they'd be able to get or force some 3-and-outs. I had a final score prediction of, I think it was like 30-10. I figured at some point maybe it's in that garbage time where they go and get a touchdown, but I do feel like they'd have really good success, similar to how they had it against Oklahoma, where they are getting them off the field, but maybe we'll see what that offense looks like. Did you have a score prediction for this game?
Yeah, I've got Tennessee 31-17.
Okay. So it's pretty similar.
Yeah, it is. Great minds think alike.
Well, we'll see.
Sometimes.
I hope so. Awesome. Well, those are great keys to the game. We will be back Sunday to do like a post-game report like we have up until this point in the season. But so far, that's all we've got for the Tennessee-Arkansas preview, and we'll be back on Sunday. But until then, make sure to subscribe. Actually, one last point. Jimmy, you had your interview with Robert Peace on Thursday.
Yeah.
I wanted to have a chance to talk about that because he had such great stories from recruiting with Randy Sanders and just the unconventional aspect of his recruiting. Just something that they should know to give that a listen to.
Well, Randy Sanders actually spent the night in the Peace house knowing that Robert Peace was ready to commit to Arkansas, and Sanders wouldn't leave without getting Peace to commit to Tennessee. That worked. The other part that was pretty funny was Carol Peace, Robert Peace's mom, said, "I don't want you to go to Tennessee." She told Coach Fulmer that I don't want him going to Tennessee because if he does, he's going to marry some Tennessee girl and he's going to stay in Knoxville.
Yes.
Little did she know it'd be Philip Fulmer's daughter.
Yeah, dating that coach's daughter, yeah.
And the other was the exchange with Nick Saban,
Yeah, that was a good one.
in which Joe Raymond, Robert's dad, said that he had heard that Coach Saban could be a jerk.
Yes, that's a nice way to put
and
it.
Saban fired right back at him. "Well, I heard you could be a jerk." And then the dad says, "Robert, do you think I'm a jerk?" And he says, "Well, sometimes you are."
Yeah,
So-
he's like, actually, just leave me out of it. Yeah.
So there's some pretty good stories in there with our Robert Peace.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great story. It's back on the homepage under the Rewind with Jimmy Hyams. But until Sunday, when we meet you guys for hopefully another great post-game report with the Tennessee win, make sure to subscribe, and we'll talk to you guys Sunday.